Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, the home of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. This is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now.
A Monday night nightmare that we will not be waking from anytime soon. Mike Evans out for a little bit. Chris Godwin, a gruesome injury that will end his season for the Buccaneers. Is his career with the Buccaneers at an end? And what do the Buccaneers do to solve their wide receiver woes? That's the focus of this edition of Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now. Welcome into the Stream Center, folks. Man, we got a duo today. It's me and the man with a plan. Everybody, Dan Lucas, Bucs Insider. Take a bow,
Coffee.
Dan.
I have been caffeinated. I'm ready. By the way, it's creamsicle week.
Oh, okay.
You know that? Bucko Bruce week.
You got cream in that coffee for creamsicle week?
There's cream in this coffee. There's lots of things in my coffee.
Man, I'm glad to see you smiling, because for Buccaneers fans out there, Dan, it is not a happy time, so to speak. And of course, we're talking about, let's bring up the injury report just to lead off the program
steps,
here.
JB, the 12 steps of coming off Monday night. We're now in the chuckle about it stage.
You can read more about this right now on WFLA.com for Garrett Phillips, our digital content producer, talking about Chris Godwin, a gruesome final couple of minute injury there at the end of the Monday Night Football loss to the Ravens. Godwin expected to be out for the remainder of the season. This coming a couple of quarters or so after Mike Evans went down with a hamstring injury. Let's just, before we look ahead at solutions, Dan, how much of a gut punch is this for the Buccaneers?
Well, a few weeks ago, the Bucs were in a crisis defensively, and it would be an understatement to say they're in a crisis right now offensively, because this alters everything. This isn't just, we're going to put a guy in here and do our best next man up. The scheme will have to change a little bit. Personnel certainly is going to move around a little bit. Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan have been kind of playing one in front of the other. Now they're going to be on the field at the same time leading this thing. The running backs are going to have to play a bigger role in the passing game. And I think that the running backs were already kind of doing that, because they do that as an extension of the run. But they're going to have to incorporate more people to pick up the slack. You're not going to get that guaranteed one-on-one where it's probably going to be won by Mike Evans. They don't have that right now. Chris Godwin in the slot, that's very hard to replace. So you have to first detach the expectations and understand this is going to be a by committee thing. To replace these two guys. And Godwin gone for the rest of the regular season. Todd Bowles said yesterday there is a chance, and by the way, Godwin had his surgery today and everything went well. If the Bucs go on a deep playoff run, and we mean not just a wild card game, beyond, he might be able to get back on the field, kind of like Vita Vea did back in after the 2020 season. But that's so far away right now. What you need to look to is to get through these next three games without Mike Evans. And if Evans is able to come back after the bye week, things change dramatically, because these guys are going to have 3 games under their belt under this method, system, whatever you want to call it. And I think integrating Evans back into it will only make the offense get a boost. And after the bye week, we've talked about this every week, after the bye week, the schedule becomes very manageable. So if the Bucs are in a place to hang in there after the bye week, if they can get going offensively, even without Chris Godwin, there's a chance they could get on a little bit of a roll.
I would imagine that Bucs fans have little doubt that Mike Evans is going to make a comeback and be the Mike Evans that we have seen, of course, over his now 100 touchdown receiving career. Mike Evans is going to be back. Chris Godwin, certainly a tough loss. You mentioned some of the names, Dan, that are on the roster right now. Sterling Shepard likely going to have to step up. Jalen McMillan going to likely have to step up. I want to highlight some of the names that are out there on the trade market right now, because man, look, the hot stove is getting pretty hot all of a sudden. DeAndre Hopkins going to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a very loud move for the reigning Super Bowl champions. Let's go over some of the names that are potentially out there and available. The big one, the loudest one that's going to cause the most ruckus is Cooper Kupp. of the Los Angeles Rams. Buccaneers know Cooper Kupp well, obviously from the playoff matchup a couple years back. T. Higgins out there with the Bengals. The Bengals are in just this weird state of flux. They were supposed to be way better.
They're almost Bungles. Not quite Bungles right now.
Bungles is I kind of stepped into that, but that kind of feels right the way that the Bengals have been playing. Just not the team, not the squad that we were expecting at this point in the season.
In a very good AFC North, by the way.
Now, would Deontay Johnson be potentially an option? I mean, they're in division, right, with the Panthers, but I mean, it's going to be a fire sale with Dave Canales' squad there in the NFC South.
Possibly. These names you're mentioning, they're all valid. I don't think you can sit here and be dismissive of any name. The Bucs are working out receivers today, reportedly, as we speak. So Jason Light, the GM, is in an interesting position because you can't not kick the tires and do your diligence, but you also can't just pull the trigger on a big name like Cooper Kupp to be a quick fix, because there's repercussions that come with that later, not sooner. One being, I believe it's a second-round pick the Rams are looking for. That's just not something the Bucs. I mean, they would have to be in dire straits to part with that draft pick. They don't do it. Jason Light doesn't operate that way. He half this team are his draft picks. So that's a pretty valuable piece of real estate, if you will. And then the salary cap hit, which I believe they're trying to, teams that would negotiate with the Rams are going to try and get the Rams to absorb some of that hit. That's all well and good, but you have a free agency period next spring and a guy named Chris Godwin that you need to sign. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have Cooper Kupp on your roster, and you're going to try and lock up Chris Godwin. Even the miracle man, Jason Light, this past spring when he pulled off, there's limitations at some point on that. So there's a lot that have to line up to make a trade here. I would imagine, though, I'll be honest with you, if the Bucs go out Sunday against the Falcons and completely flop offensively, then you will see a turn of the tide, and maybe they'll try to fix some things that route. But it's already Wednesday as we record this, and the game's on Sunday. You get into that Atlanta game with what you have, try to change things around the best you can, to perform the best you can, and then take your chances. After that, you'll have a day or two to move forward. The problem for the Bucs is they're in this month-long period where they're playing 3 of the 4 conference finalists from last year. So this is I've said it a million times, they're in the gauntlet right now, and there's no forgiveness whatsoever. This Atlanta game is massive, and it's followed by another massive game and another massive game after that till you get to that bye week. So if you're going to see changes, or personnel as in trades and that, my guess is it would happen after that Falcons game.
It'll be very interesting to see if the Bucs look more internal or external. There are some other names I just want to highlight because social media is abuzz with wide receivers on the moves. Mike Williams, who kind of feels like the odd man out with the Jets after the acquisition of Devontae Adams. Christian Kirk is a name floating around. Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney. I mean, might as well just throw Scotty Miller out there for names.
Bring back the Scooter.
Bring back Scooter. I mean, anything and everything's on the table. To highlight, Garrett just sent me a note a short time ago. Per Jordan Schultz, Buccaneers working out wide receiver Caden Davis today. That's according to a source. So Jason Light clearly, entertaining the idea of getting some outside help.
Yes.
Just a matter of how that really takes shape in the weeks ahead. Really quickly, before we bring in Buckified Bert, because he's on the line ready to call in, let's talk about Godwin for a second. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that there is goodwill there, mutual, faith, if you will, faith on both sides to get a deal done and to bring Godwin back? Or are we talking about more of a situation? Devin White was in the news today. He just signed with the Texans, I believe, after that brief stint with Philadelphia. There was some kind of bad juju between Devin White and the Bucs. And is it more of that situation, or do Chris Godwin, Jason Light, is there mutual sort of hope that they can get a deal done?
Yeah, Chris Godwin is in that small group of cornerstone franchise guys, whatever you want to call them. Mike Evans, this past spring, Jason Light didn't know if he was going to pull off a miracle, but he had his list, and Evans, Mayfield, extending Tristan Wirfs. That was all on the list because Godwin's in that category as well. I can tell you right now, he's already looking at the numbers to bring back Godwin next year to make an attempt to do this. The issue becomes, as a general manager, you then have to detach the emotions and look at the player and what's coming back. And the way Chris Godwin came back from his ACL a couple of years ago was less than 9 months, I think. He is a workhorse, an absolute beast when it comes to the rehab and the gym during that process. I will guarantee you he does what he can to get back. I bet you, JB, that before the holidays, we start hearing rumblings of Godwin is running around and looking good and might be able to come back soon. I guarantee we hear this. Jason Light needs to see that because when you're going through your list of potential free agents, health plays a big factor. And at that point, you have if Godwin isn't, if you don't think you're going to get the same player, that's where you make difficult decisions as the GM. So I think Jason Light needs to see that. But as far as who the guy is, what he does on the field, absolutely. He belongs here. Look at what happened Monday night. You lose Evans, and then Godwin. It's peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? That's how these fans look at these guys. That's what made the night such a disaster. Losing to the Ravens and in the fashion they lost to the Ravens became almost irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Some fans won't even remember the score of the game and what the Bucs were trying to do at the end. They were down 10. They were trying to get in to kick a field goal. To set
up an onside kick,
to set up another onside kick
for a Hail Mary potentially,
yes. Right? And the rule is, and there's so many, because a lot of fans say he should have been on the field. Well, if he shouldn't have been on the field, neither should Baker, neither should Tristan, neither should any of the starters.
Could happen to anybody.
Anybody, anytime. But the point is, you watch enough football, everyone has a story of things they've seen. And I know sometimes things are a little crazy miracles, but you have to put yourself in a position to make that happen. That's how the NFL works. How many times have football games come down to the last throw in a game? You got Aaron Rodgers the other night throwing a Hail Mary, and we're documenting his Hail Mary success. So the formula is, if you get the ball, and remember they got it from an onside kick, if you get the football down 10, the first thing you try to do is get to kick a field goal as fast as you can, and then you onside kick, take your chances, and then you have the rest of the time on the clock to get into the end zone. That's the formula, and that's what the Bucs were trying to do. So I, for one, I know there was a lot of instant emotion the other night, but I thought Todd Bowles took a bad rap for the game situation and trying to manage the game in that way when the Godwin injury happened. It's unfortunate. But that's all it was.
Godwin, 2 notes. Godwin was on his way to having a career year.
Right.
I mean, I believe leading the league in receptions, or at least
he's number 2 in receiving yards as we stand here today.
Yep, 5 touchdowns on the season. He was averaging 11.5 yards per reception. I mean, he was lights out for the Bucs, making it all that more of a chaotic situation. The second note I should pass along is that the NFL is investigating whether or not that's a hip drop tackle and whether or not there's going to be repercussions, a fine potentially for the Ravens player who tackled Godwin.
Yeah, at this point would be more of a symbolic thing, but when you watch the play, and I can tell you, if you watch the replay, it's not pretty.
No, but it was Roquan Smith.
It was in that area that they of the kind of play that they were outlawing from the game last year, and you've rarely seen it called. I don't even know an instance where it was called last year or this year, but that's what it looked like for sure. And this is it will probably be when the competition committee gets together next time, whenever the league has their meetings. The competition committee might use this play as an example of why it needs to be, implemented more, calling this rule, because it's such a gray area, this hip drop thing, that players are confused, officials are confused, and the first time it impacts a game it's going to just create the opposite effect. Let's get rid. Don't call it. Don't bother. But in this instance, it really hurts somebody. Has really dampened their career quite frankly.
It's been a brutal season for wide receiver injuries. I mean, just talking about some of the names out there that have, I mean, obviously, we're talking about the two on the Bucs with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. On just the Rams, I think of just random teams, right? Cooper Kupp is coming back from an injury. Puka Nacua has been gone. Rashee Rice is the reason, of course, that the Chiefs had to trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, left and right, all over the league, we've seen injuries at the wide receiver position. You want these players on the field. They are part of the stardom that makes up the NFL. Let's get to, speaking of stardom, if there was ever a week where Buckified Bert wasn't going to be wearing a smile on his face on the call-in segment, it would be this week.
Yes.
Let's see what he's got.
Hello, JB, Dan, the man. Look, I'm so happy to have this opportunity to be on Bucs Bonus because Bucs Bonus, every time I've been on, we won. Now, last week game, we played against a non-division, non-conference team. And keep that in mind, non-division, non-conference. And so we only lost one division game. I mean, and this week we're playing against that same opponent. And it's mandatory that we beat the Atlanta Falcons. We are the 3-time division titles, and we're going for 4. Can't no dirty bird stop us without Mike Evans. Yeah, we want them to have a speedy recovery. Chris Godwin, a speedy recovery. But this next man up mentality, we're going to put it to test come Sunday at Raymond James Stadium. Buccaneers going to take on this Atlanta Falcons, and we're going to do what the dirty bird did to us at their house. It's payback time. Get ready, JB. Get ready, Dan. The Buccaneers will win this game come Sunday, and without Mike Evans, we're going to have our other wide receiver step up to the plate. Bottom line is, we still have Baker, the touchdown maker. All right? That's what I'm talking about.
Just hanging up cold. Baker, the touchdown maker.
So he's right on the non-divisional thing. That if you get into a tiebreak situation, that loss almost is a wash. The problem is overall, records will overall be the first determination of a division champion. And the fact is, the Falcons opened the door wide open for the Bucs on Sunday by losing to the Seahawks. Had the Bucs won that game Monday against the Ravens, they would be in first place going into this. So, is it a must-win? I think it is a must-win, just because you can't have you got to even it out with the Falcons on those tiebreaker scenarios, and then take care of business. You got to sweep Carolina. I think you need to sweep the Saints as well to give yourself a chance to win out a tiebreak situation. I don't think either the Falcons or the Bucs will pull away with this division.
You got two really formidable foes looming. The 49ers might have lost Brandon Ayuk and hoping that Deebo Samuel makes a speedy recovery. I mean, hearing about the pneumonia diagnosis is really scary, but they are looming. The Kansas City Chiefs are looming. Really important season for the Bucs to handle business within their own division. Let's talk about the key storylines here as the Atlanta Falcons visit Raymond James Stadium for a Sunday afternoon affair on Fox, 1 o'clock kickoff. We talked about the wide receivers. We talked about Jalen McMillan. We talked about Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer.
Yep.
Names that have to step up in place of Evans and Godwin. But let's flip it to the other side of the ball, Dan. Communication. That is the buzzword with Todd Bowles as far as making sure that the defense is in sync and doing what they do best with creative blitzes. We've gotten healthier, but also endured some injuries as well on the defensive side of the ball. Where does this team stand right now defensively? Because I'm a little bit lost.
This was a very poor effort Monday against the Ravens, knowing what was coming. You got your Lamar Jackson rules, and then you've got a running back, the number one rusher in the NFL right now, who has played the Bucs. He played them 2 times before, and the Bucs had always contained him. There were players out of gaps, defensive backs. It wasn't even the missed tackles that killed them in the Atlanta game. It was players not in position. You had, I can't remember the Ravens player, number 7, got behind his guy in a touchdown in the third quarter that was really helped put the game out of reach.
Rashad Bateman.
Yes, the Bateman touchdown was a bad one. And then there was a one later where the player turned in on Jordan Whitehead. Whitehead's on his heels. He can't even make it. He's not even in a position to try and make a tackle, and the guy just runs right by him. Might have been Henry. Catching Henry caught the pass and ran it in.
Yep.
Just kind of going off the top of my head. Now the Atlanta loss was fundamental tackling that hurt the team. The guys bouncing off tackles. The signature moment, of course, was the overtime play. I think it was Zion McCollum who had his hands on the tackler on the ball carrier there and just kind of bounced off of him and off he went for a touchdown. This is the defense has got to shore things up here in the linebacker, the middle, and in the backfield and the defensive backfield. And one of the criticisms right now of this defense is that linebacker spot that's occupied by KJ Britt. He's taking a bit of a beating right now from analysts and statistics and measurables. So that's the spot that teams are kind of exploiting a little bit, his spot, which also, by the way, was Devin White's spot the year before. And Britt took it from him. And maybe it's time to have J.J. Russell give it a shot, see what he can do in there, because it's become a bit of a liability. Teams are passing on them in that area. It's
so puzzling because you're thinking at the early games of the season when the Buccaneers are taking care of business against the Commanders and the Lions, and you're thinking, man, when we get Kalijah Kancey and Antoine Winfield Jr. back, this defense is going to be rolling. And we're all talking about the wide receivers, but the defense was really exposed in this game against Baltimore, and you've got Kirk Cousins and the Falcons coming into town. They're starting to find a rhythm now and starting to figure out, their passing game is starting. Their high octane offense is starting to click a little bit.
The thing is, the Falcons looked really bad Sunday at home against the Seahawks. This matchup favors the Bucs defensive line, I think, because Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea, you just mentioned those two, and Logan Hall is playing lights out. So those are your three down linemen. This matchup coming up suits their talents and what they're there to do better than the Ravens, I think, because Lamar Jackson he can escape the pocket so easily, and then you've discounted anybody on the defensive line. They can't catch him, and now you're into the second level. This is different. Kirk Cousins isn't going to do that. Can't do that. So I think this bodes a little bit better defensively for the Bucs. But I go back to that Thursday night game in Atlanta. Cousins was getting the ball away quickly. And he was, Kyle Pitts had a big night. Pitts hadn't done a thing until that game. And they were missing guys as well. Drake London played, right? I think he was in the, And so there was I recall all the missed tackles and all the space along the sideline for guys to make catches and then go out of bounds, gain of 12, gain of 11, that type of thing. And so remember, you're probably going to be without Jamel Dean again this week too.
Right.
So that's, that goes into the defensive back situation.
It's interesting because you never know which Falcons team is going to show up. Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson should be among the best running back duos in the league, and sometimes they look very beatable. The Falcons are an enigma of themselves. So the Buccaneers trying to figure out the post-Evans Godwin injury sort of climate with this team. The Falcons are still, figuring out how exactly they're going to win football games. It's going to be a really interesting matchup. Let's get to the final storyline right now. If you are let's put on your national pundit hat, Dan, and you're looking at the NFC South, which is the scarier team as it stands today heading into this matchup, the Falcons or the Bucs?
Well, if you're going to say put on my national media hat, you would look at Evans and Godwin being out of the lineup, and you'd say the Bucs are going to lose every game for the rest of the season. That's the impression that you're getting. No one's even looking at how they will tackle this situation and move forward. If the Bucs come out and win Sunday, I'll guarantee you it will be presented as what a nightmare for Atlanta, not what a gallant effort by the Bucs, the shorthanded Bucs. I would have to say Atlanta has to be the favorite right now. As poorly as they played the other day, they're just intact. And I'm not sure how the Falcons' schedule lines up on the back end, but
I'll give you some.
They would have to say right now the Falcons have the edge because they have a win over the Bucs. The thing the Bucs have right now, we haven't mentioned him yet. Baker Mayfield he's a difference maker right now. He leads the league in touchdown passes still, correct?
Yep. I believe. Hold on.
I think he does. I think so. But that's he had such an amazing night against the Falcons that it was overshadowed by Kirk Cousins' 509 yards. But
leading the league by 3 touchdowns. He's got 18 passing touchdowns on the season.
Even the other night against the Ravens, I know he had the 2 costly interceptions, and that was devastating in that sense. His rating was still over 104. He was still had a really good game. 3 touchdown passes. So he has to manage the moment as well and understand that things are going to change offensively for him. And I expect you're going to see a lot of dump offs here from now on. And that not just the running backs, we're talking more to the tight ends to just keep that ball moving. The dreaded dink and dunk, the fans call it, but whatever it takes to move forward until someone shows you that game breaker speed. And Trey Palmer should be that guy that can get down the field as a speedster and get under it and haul it in and catch it, for the 40-yard gain. Until you see that, it's going to be a lot of short passes.
May I give you a hot take?
Yep.
I'm going to give you a hot take. All right. I was hanging out with some buddies watching football this past weekend, and we were all talking about Baker. This was on Sunday before the Monday night disaster with Evans and Godwin getting hurt, and we were puzzled at why Baker Mayfield was not more in the MVP conversation, leading the league in touchdowns and leading a Buccaneers offense with Liam Cohen that looks really efficient. And I'm wondering why he's not more in that top 5 echelon. He's more in that top 10 conversation right now as far as MVP votes. Here's my hot take. If Baker can continue this level of performance without Evans and Godwin for the next few games, and Godwin obviously probably out at least until way on into a deep playoff run, Baker potentially could emerge as a dark horse MVP candidate if he can continue with names like Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, and maybe Cade Otton emerges too. We forget about him being an efficient pass catcher.
He's going to have to. Cade Otton, yes, he's part of it.
Maybe that's what lights people up a bit as far as Baker being taken seriously as an MVP candidate, but that's a hot take because, of course, the wide receiver core would have to really step up and help Baker out for that scenario to play out.
This is a big moment for his, I'll call it growth as well, JB,
doubt.
because you mentioned the game manager and having those 2 big weapons to find. Now it's up to him to make the right decisions and to deliver the ball that's catchable. A lesser than perfect pass. Even the Mike Evans touchdown pass the other night was less than perfect. He was able to adjust to it, go down to one knee in the end zone and make the catch. So now you need guys to make that catch. And that's on him to set it right where it needs to be for them to have a shot at it. I don't think one of the reasons they haven't gone out and made a rash move at wide receiver right now is because they have faith in who they've selected. These are guys they brought in themselves. And if you go back to the Bucs preseason, you'd have to. I remember it because I stood down there and watched it. But if you go back and look at those box scores, and you look at who was making catches, who caught touchdown passes, they're the guys they're relying on now. Ryan Miller, Raheem Jarrett, Tanner Canoe. I think he may get called up Sunday. I don't know, but Cody Thompson's injured right now. So, but these are the names. When you start hearing these names, you go, "Oh yeah, that's right. He did something against the Bengals in the preseason." There's a reason they have that depth, and they're not just going to put warm bodies on the depth chart. So, I think it's you got to wait and see what happens.
You know who was at the game on Monday night? Rob Gronkowski's only 35 years old. Hey, Gronk, come on, let's suit up. We need you.
Well, if you're watching, Gronk,
I'm just kidding. But
we'll give you your number back too.
It will be interesting to see how Jason Light and the front office navigate this, and also too what Todd Bowles, Liam Cohen, Baker Mayfield, what kind of offense takes the field on Sunday. Again, 1 o'clock kickoff at Raymond James Stadium, a home game for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Before we say farewell on this edition of Bucs Bonus, we have a thank you to pass along here. And it goes out to our former digital content producer, Casey Sloan, who has been such a big part of this show, Dan, for the last couple of years. Casey is going back with her boyfriend to her home state of Ohio, where she'll be. She says she's going to continue to cheer on the Buccaneers, but also cheering on her Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep. She's a Cincinnati sports girl.
And I just wanted to say from our team, and I'm sure that you have more to say as well, a humongous thank you to Casey for everything that she has done to make this show click in the past couple of years.
An absolute pleasure working with Casey from day one, watching her take on more and more. And we're talking about Baker Mayfield growing in a role. Casey, flourished in her role. And now she's ready for bigger and better. So it's fun and awesome to see. Now, the losers in all of this are you and me, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Because now we're left behind. That's what stinks. But so Casey's going back up to Ohio. As you said, she's going to be great. She's going to be close to family, too. You can never argue with that. And she'll have all the Skyline chili she can eat.
That's right.
So there you go.
The Skyline
she won't have
chili.
to go over to Clearwater to get it.
She continues to work in this industry.
I don't know if she eats Skyline. I never asked her, actually.
I never asked her to. She was just here yesterday before she hits the road in the days ahead for Ohio. And a shout out to Garrett Phillips, who's going to be taking over for Casey as the producer for Bucs Bonus. So shout out to him. The show is in great hands, but we will miss you, Casey. All the very best to you. Bucs Bonus streams, of course, here Wednesdays, 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, right here on WFLA.com. You can find us on your podcast platforms in addition to Facebook Live and YouTube as well. In the weeks ahead, I'm sure we will be seeing more of these faces. You know them, our Bucs Insiders.
There they are.
Not just Dan Lucas, but Eileen Natchik, Kenny Morales, and then you'll see Buckified Bert as well here on the show and on the Jumbotron at Raymond James Stadium. We got a lot more Bucs football to be talking about in the weeks ahead. Keep it right here on WFLA.com for all the very latest from your official Bucs station. For Dan Lucas, I'm JB Biunno. We'll see you next time on Bucs Bonus. Take care, folks.